Have you ever been fired for telling the truth? Picture being dragged from the boardroom while the entire company watches. Threatened, you'll never work in finance again, except you're clutching evidence that could destroy the career of the man pushing you off the cliff. They thought I was finished when security escorted me out that Tuesday morning. They didn't know my sister at the Wall Street Journal was about to turn their perfectly orchestrated fraud into tomorrow's headlines. This is how I played the long game and won. My name is Clara Hayes, and for 12 years, I was the person who kept Lexford Dynamics from crossing the line. 36 years old, single by choice, and possessed of what my colleagues called an unnatural obsession with regulatory compliance. They meant it as an insult. I wore it as armor. The morning everything changed started like any other. I arrived at our Chicago headquarters at 7:30 sharp, black coffee in hand, already reviewing the risk assessment reports that would dominate my day. The 42nd floor offered a view of Lake Michigan that still made me pause. Even after all these years, below, the city churned through its morning routine, oblivious to the decisions being made in towers like ours that could wipe out pension funds or tank small businesses with a keystroke. My office sat strategically between the executive suite and the trading floor, a deliberate placement that let me monitor both worlds. The walls held my credentials, Northwestern MBA, Series 7 and 66 licenses, certificates from every compliance seminar worth attending, but the real power lay in the reputation I'd built. Clara Hayes doesn't miss things. Clara Hayes doesn't bend rules. Clara Hayes is the reason we've never had an SEC violation. That reputation was about to be tested. The email came through at 8:15 mandatory all-hands meeting at 9. The sender was our CEO, but the unusual timing suggested something significant. Acquisitions, perhaps, or restructuring. The trading floor buzzed with speculation as I made my way to the main conference room. I should have known something was wrong when I saw the board members' faces. These were people who'd trusted my judgment through 2008, through the London whale scandal that caught our competitors, through every close call that could have ended differently without proper oversight. Now they avoided my eyes. "Team," our CEO began, his voice carrying that forced enthusiasm that preceded bad news. "I want to introduce our new Chief Operating Officer, Evan Price." The man who entered looked like he'd been assembled by a Hollywood casting director asked for young executive, 32, maybe 33, with that specific brand of confidence that came from Harvard Business School, and a father with connections. His suit cost more than most people's monthly salary. His handshake, when he worked the room, was practiced to convey exactly the right amount of pressure. When he reached me, his smile flickered just for a moment like a glitch in his programming. "Clara Hayes," he said, drawing out my name like he was tasting something bitter. "I've heard so much about you, the guardian angel of Lexford. They call you—" "I prefer Chief Compliance Officer," I replied, matching his grip pressure for pressure. "Of course," his smile returned, sharper now. "Though I have to wonder if we sometimes let compliance fears hold us back from maximizing opportunities. The market rewards boldness, not bureaucracy." The room went quiet. Even the board members shifted uncomfortably. In 2 sentences, he'd essentially declared war on everything I represented. "The market also rewards companies that don't end up in federal investigations," I said, keeping my voice level. "Boldness without boundaries is just recklessness with a marketing spin." A few nervous chuckles rippled through the room. Evan's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. "Well," he said, loud enough for everyone to hear, "I look forward to showing you how we can push those boundaries without breaking them. After all, evolution requires disruption, doesn't it?" The rest of the meeting blurred past quarterly projections, new initiatives, the usual corporate theater, but I felt the shift in the room's dynamics. Evan commanded attention not through competence but through sheer gravitational pull. He made people want to impress him, to be part of whatever golden future he was selling. After the meeting, my colleague Janet pulled me aside near the elevator banks. "Careful with that one," she whispered, glancing around nervously. "He got his last company a 300% return in 18 months. And where is that company now?" She pressed the elevator button repeatedly, avoiding my eyes. "Under investigation, but he was already gone by then. Moved on to bigger things. That's his pattern explosive growth. Perfect timing. And someone else holding the bag when it goes bad." The elevator arrived, and she stepped in quickly. ending our conversation, but her warning echoed as I returned to my office. I pulled up Evan Price's background, what little was publicly available. Janet was right about the pattern. 3 companies in 5 years, each with spectacular gains during his tenure, each facing scrutiny after his departure. Nothing proven, nothing prosecutable, just a trail of aggressive accounting and convenient exits. At 4:45 that afternoon, my first real test arrived. An email from Evan, copying half the board. "Clara, I need you to expedite approval on the new reporting structure. We're implementing a more streamlined approach to quarterly assessments. Details attached." The attachment made my blood run cold. He was proposing to consolidate multiple risk assessments into single categories, effectively hiding individual vulnerabilities in aggregate numbers. Legal, technically; ethical, absolutely not. It was designed to make our risk profile look cleaner to investors while actually increasing our exposure. I spent 3 hours crafting my response, citing specific SEC guidelines and precedent cases. Professional, thorough, and impossible to misinterpret this was a bad idea. His reply came at 8:20 that night. "I appreciate your diligence, Clara, but we need to move faster than our competitors. Consider this a learning opportunity about how we'll operate going forward." I stared at those words, understanding their real meaning. He wasn't interested in compliance or ethics or sustainable growth. Evan Price was here to juice the numbers, collect his bonus, and move on before the foundation cracked. What he didn't understand was that I'd been here for 12 years. This company, these people, the pension funds that trusted us, they weren't just numbers on his way to the next conquest. I opened a new folder on my personal drive, labeling it Documentation. Then I forwarded his email to my personal account, the first of what I suspected would be many. The war for Lexford Dynamics had begun. Evan Price thought he was playing against a bureaucrat. He was about to learn he was playing against someone who'd spent over a decade learning every rule, every loophole, and every weapon the system provided. And I never lost a fight that mattered. The first red flags appeared within 2 weeks of Evan's arrival, subtle enough that anyone not looking would miss them entirely. But I was looking. I was documenting everything. It started with the morning meetings. Evan instituted daily sprint sessions at 7 a.m., deliberately scheduled before the compliance team typically arrived. Decisions were being made without oversight, commitments given to clients without risk assessment. When I adjusted my schedule to attend, he seemed amused rather than concerned. "Clara, so dedicated," he announced one morning as I entered the conference room at 6:55. "Though I wonder if you might be more effective focusing on your actual responsibilities rather than micromanaging ours." "My actual responsibility is ensuring this company operates within legal parameters," I replied, taking my seat and opening my laptop. That's rather difficult when parameters are being set without my input. The room fell silent. The younger executives, hungry for Evan's approval, shifted nervously. They'd been enjoying the cowboy atmosphere, the promises of bigger bonuses, the adrenaline of moving fast and breaking things. My presence was like a parent walking into a teenage party. "Perhaps," Evan said, his voice dripping condescension, "we need to redefine what input means. Consultation, not obstruction." I documented every word. The pattern escalated throughout March. Client reports that usually crossed my desk for verification started appearing in final form without my review. When I investigated, I found numbers that didn't quite add up, not obviously fraudulent, but massaged, projections rounded up just enough to hit targets, risk assessments that somehow always landed just below the threshold requiring board approval. My ally in uncovering these discrepancies came from an unexpected source. Megan Carter from accounting had been with Lexford for 6 years. Quiet and meticulous, the kind of person who noticed when numbers didn't sing in harmony. She approached me during lunch at our usual spot, a sandwich shop 2 blocks from the office where we could talk without being overheard. "Something's wrong with the Q1 reports," she said without preamble, sliding a folder across the table. "These numbers, they're not matching our internal audits." I flipped through the pages, seeing what she meant immediately. Revenue projections had been adjusted upward by roughly 3% across multiple categories, not enough to trigger automatic review, but in aggregate, enough to paint a significantly rosier picture. "Who authorized these adjustments?" That's the thing. Megan glanced around nervously. The authorization codes trace back to the COO's office, but the timestamp shows they were made at 2:30 a.m. last Tuesday. Security logs show Evan badged out at 6 p.m. the night before. Someone else using his codes. Or he's doing it remotely, off the official network. She leaned forward. Clara, I ran a pattern analysis. These adjustments, they're not random. They're specifically designed to hit investor expectation targets published by analysts last month. Someone's reverse engineering our numbers to match predictions. My stomach tightened. This was beyond aggressive accounting, this was manipulation. Can you prove it? Not officially. The adjustments are all within acceptable variance ranges individually. It's only the pattern that's suspicious. She paused. But I've been keeping copies of everything. Original numbers, adjusted numbers, authorization codes, timestamps. Good. Keep doing that. And Megan. I met her eyes. Be careful. Document everything on personal drives, not company servers. She nodded, understanding the implications. That afternoon, Evan called an impromptu presentation for potential investors. I wasn't invited, but I made it my business to attend anyway. The conference room was packed with suits from various hedge funds, all eager to hear about Lexford's revolutionary new approach to market dynamics. Evan was in his element, prowling the stage like a motivational speaker, selling not just returns, but a vision. The numbers he presented were the same ones Megan had flagged polished until they gleamed. Technically true, but fundamentally misleading. As you can see, he said, clicking through slides that transformed complex financial realities into simple success stories. We're not just meeting projections, we're exceeding them, and this is just the beginning. One of the investors raised a hand. What about regulatory compliance? The SEC has been particularly aggressive lately. Evan's smile never wavered. We have a robust compliance department. They ensure we color inside the lines. He paused, found me in the crowd. Isn't that right, Clara? Every eye turned to me. It was a trap, elegantly set. Disagree, and I'd be undermining the company in front of investors. Agree, and I'd be endorsing his numbers. Lexford Dynamics has maintained a perfect compliance record for 12 years, I said carefully. We intend to maintain that standard. See, Evan spread his hands. Total alignment. But several investors caught my careful phrasing. I saw them making notes, saw the subtle shift in their expressions. They'd heard what I hadn't said as clearly as what I had. After the meeting, Evan cornered me by the elevators. That was quite the performance, he said quietly, very carefully worded. I spoke the truth. You spoke your truth. There's a difference. He pressed the elevator button. You know, Clara, companies evolve or they die. The question is whether their employees evolve with them. Is that a threat? It's an observation. You're brilliant at what you do, but what you do might not be what we need anymore. The elevator arrived, and he stepped in, leaving me standing in the hallway. But I wasn't worried about his threats. I was thinking about those 2:30 a.m. timestamps, about patterns designed to match analyst predictions, about a trail of companies that exploded in value just before they imploded in scandal. That night, I created a second backup system, this time using encrypted cloud storage. I uploaded everything Megan's findings, the adjusted reports, the email chains, the security logs. Then I went one step further. I called my sister Lauren. Hey, Claire, she answered on the second ring. How's the corporate world? Interesting, I said carefully. We'd developed a code over the years. Interesting meant she should pay attention. You know that piece you were working on about financial reporting manipulation? Still gathering sources. Why? No reason. Just wondering what kind of patterns you were seeing. There was a pause. Lauren had been an investigative journalist for 8 years. She knew when someone was really just wondering versus when they were sitting on something. Same patterns as always, she said slowly. New leadership comes in, promises aggressive growth, delivers amazing numbers for a few quarters, then disappears right before it all falls apart. Hypothetically, if someone were seeing those patterns in real time, what would you advise? Hypothetically, document everything, create redundant backups, and Claire, her voice dropped. Be careful. The people who do this, They don't just manipulate numbers, they destroy anyone who threatens their exit strategy. After we hung up, I sat in my home office, staring at the city lights. Evan thought he was playing a simple game: inflate the numbers, collect the rewards, exit before the collapse. He didn't realize he'd chosen the wrong company, the wrong time, and definitely the wrong compliance officer. I opened my laptop and began creating a timeline, mapping every adjustment, every after-hours authorization, every pattern Megan had identified. If Evan Price wanted to play games with Lexford Dynamics, he was about to learn that some players kept score in ways he'd never imagined. The chess match was just beginning, and I already knew how it would end. The only question was how many pieces he'd lose along the way. The smoking gun appeared on a gray Thursday morning in April, hidden in a routine expense report that should have been unremarkable. I almost missed it myself, buried as it was among hundreds of legitimate transactions. But something about the amount caught my eye: $4.7 million, just under the $5 million threshold that required board approval. Meridian Consulting Group. The name was unfamiliar, which was odd. I knew every major consulting firm we worked with. A quick search in our vendor database showed they'd been added just 6 weeks ago, approved by Evan personally. I dug deeper. Meridian had received 4 payments in 6 weeks, each just under the threshold. Total $18.6 million for consulting services that, as far as I could tell, had produced no deliverables, no reports, no presentations, nothing. My hands shook slightly as I pulled up the corporate registration. Meridian Consulting Group, incorporated in Delaware 3 months ago. The registered agent was a law firm known for creating shell companies. The actual owners were hidden behind layers of legal opacity. But I'd been doing this long enough to know where to look. State tax filings, business license applications, the small bureaucratic breadcrumbs that people like Evan never thought to sweep up. It took me 3 hours, but I found it. Meridian's sole employee, listed on a Delaware tax document, was Ryan Price, Evan's brother. I leaned back in my chair, staring at the screen. This wasn't aggressive accounting or optimistic projections. This was straight embezzlement, dressed up in consulting fees and hidden in plain sight. I needed more proof. The payments alone weren't enough. Evan could claim his brother's firm provided legitimate services. I needed to show the money's path, prove that no actual work was being done. Megan was my first call. We met in the parking garage this time, away from any security cameras. "I need you to trace something," I said, handing her the account numbers. "Carefully, don't trigger any alerts." She studied the information, her eyes widening as she recognized the amounts. "Clara, this is—" "I know what it is. Can you track where the money goes after it hits Meridian's account?" "Not legally. That would require accessing external bank records." "Then track what you can legally. When these payments go out, what happens to our cash reserves? Are there corresponding adjustments elsewhere?" She nodded slowly. "I'll check. But Clara, if this is what it looks like, then we need irrefutable proof. One shot at this, we can't miss." That afternoon, Evan called a senior staff meeting. He was expanding the Meridian contract. He announced, given their exceptional strategic insights, we'd be increasing their monthly retainer. "I haven't seen any reports from Meridian," I said, my voice carefully neutral. "Could you share their deliverables so I can ensure proper documentation for compliance?" Evan's smile was razor sharp. "Their work is primarily strategic positioning, high-level advisory. Not all value comes in written reports. Clara, sometimes it's about relationships, introductions, opening doors. The SEC still requires documentation of services rendered for payments of this size. Then document that they're providing strategic advisory services." His tone hardened. "Unless you're suggesting impropriety." The room went silent. Everyone watched, waiting to see if I'd take the bait. "I'm suggesting we follow standard procedures," I replied, "which include maintaining records of all contractor deliverables." "Your suggestion is noted and overruled." He turned to the others. "Now, let's discuss Q2 projections." I spent the rest of the meeting taking notes, but my mind was racing. He'd just publicly overruled a compliance requirement. That was either supreme confidence or supreme stupidity, maybe both. After the meeting, Janet cornered me. "Drop it," she whispered urgently. "Whatever you're doing, stop. You know I can't do that. Clara, he's not just connected, he's protected. The board loves him. The numbers are up. No one cares how. I care. She looked at me with something like pity. Then you're going to lose more than your job. That night, working from home, I found another piece of the puzzle. Our internal project management system showed Meridian assigned to something called Project Storm, but there were no files, no timelines, no team members, just a project code that appeared on expense reports. I cross-referenced the code. It appeared in other places 2 travel expenses for Evan. Always to New York. Always on days when major trades were executed. Hotel bills at the St. Regis. Restaurant receipts from places where Wall Street power brokers made handshake deals. Then I found the pattern that made everything clear. Every Meridian payment preceded a major trade by 48 hours. Every trade benefited from information that wasn't public at the time of execution. The consulting fees weren't just embezzlement, they were payment for insider information. My phone buzzed. Megan. Texting from a burner phone we'd started using, found something, can't put in writing, tomorrow, usual place. I deleted the message immediately, my pulse quickening. We were close, but close to what, exposing the fraud or becoming its next victims. I thought about Janet's warning, about the board's enthusiasm for Evan's results, about how easy it would be for him to destroy my career with a few well-placed words. But then I thought about the pension funds investing in our company, the employees whose 401ks depended on our stability, the regulatory framework that existed precisely to prevent people like Evan from treating public companies like personal piggy banks. I opened my encrypted folder and began organizing everything chronologically. Payments to Meridian, the Project Storm codes, the pattern of trades, the late-night adjustments to reports. Each piece alone might be explained away, but together they painted a picture of systematic fraud. At 2 a.m., still working, I noticed something odd in my email, a message I hadn't sent, sitting in my drafts folder. I've been having doubts about my ability to perform my duties effectively. The stress of the position may be affecting my judgment. A resignation letter, written from my account but not by me. I checked the metadata, created at 11:45 p.m., while I was definitely at home. Someone had accessed my work account remotely. It could trace that, but a T reported to the COO now, to Evan. He wasn't just planning to fire me. He was creating a narrative the overwhelmed compliance officer who couldn't adapt to change, whose paranoid accusations stemmed from professional inadequacy. I forwarded the draft to my personal email, then deleted it from my work account. Another piece of evidence, another move in the game. But Evan had made a crucial mistake. He'd shown his hand too early, revealed that he saw me as a threat worth neutralizing. That meant I was close to something he couldn't afford to have exposed. I picked up my phone and scrolled to Lauren's number. Not to call, not yet, but soon. When I had everything documented, when the proof was irrefutable, when Evan Price thought he'd won, that's when I'd play the card he'd never see coming. A Pulitzer-winning investigative journalist with a reputation for taking down corporate fraud, who just happened to be my sister, who'd been tracking patterns exactly like this for years. Evan thought he was playing chess with a compliance officer. He was about to learn he was playing against a family that had made careers out of exposing people exactly like him. The decision to fight back crystallized at 5:45 a.m. on a Monday morning when I found Megan crying in the bathroom. She'd been called into Evan's office on Friday, questioned about inappropriate curiosity regarding financial reports outside her department. "He knows," she whispered, checking the stalls to ensure we were alone. "Not everything, but he knows I've been looking." What did he say exactly? That Lexford values team players, not detectives. That maybe I'd be happier at a smaller firm with less complex financial structures. She met my eyes in the mirror. "Clara, I have 2 kids. I can't lose this job." "You won't, I promise." It was a promise I had no authority to make, but seeing Megan's fear flipped a switch in me. This wasn't just about fraudulent numbers anymore. Evan was terrorizing good people, using their livelihoods as leverage for silence. That morning, I began building what I privately called the shadow file, not just evidence of fraud, but a complete parallel set of books showing what our real numbers looked like versus what was being reported. Every manipulation, every adjustment, Every mysterious payment all documented with both the original and altered versions. I work differently now, assuming I was being watched. Important files were created on my personal laptop, using coffee shop's Wi-Fi, never touching Lexford's network. I bought a new phone with cash, using it only for photographs of physical documents that couldn't be digitally exported without leaving a trace. The breakthrough came from an unexpected source. Our junior analyst, Marcus Webb, knocked on my door Thursday afternoon, visibly nervous. "Ms. Hayes, I found something weird in the trade histories." I gestured for him to close the door. "Show me." He pulled up a spreadsheet on his tablet. I was doing routine reconciliation, and these trades, they don't match our risk parameters. They're way outside our normal strategies, but they're all profitable, every single one. I studied the data. 23 trades over 6 weeks, each using information that should have been confidential, each timed perfectly. The profits were being hidden across multiple portfolios, but in aggregate, we were looking at insider trading worth roughly $30 million. Marcus, who authorized these trades. That's the weird part. The authorization codes are from the COO's office, but the actual execution timestamps are all after hours, between midnight and 3 a.m. The same pattern as the report adjustments. Evan was getting sloppy, or maybe just confident that no one would connect the dots. "Have you shown this to anyone else?" "No, ma'am. I came to you first." "Good instinct. Leave this with me. And Marcus, don't mention this to anyone. For your own protection." He nodded, understanding more than I'd said. That night, I compiled everything into a single encrypted file: the Meridian payments, the Project Storm documents, the insider trades, the manipulated reports. The picture it painted was damning: a systematic scheme to defraud investors while siphoning money through shell companies. But I needed one more thing: proof that Evan knew. Fraud required intent, and he'd been careful to maintain plausible deniability. Every document had someone else's name on it. Every trade executed by subordinates. Every payment approved through proper channels, even if those channels led nowhere. The answer came from Evan himself. Friday morning, he called me into his office. No witnesses. Just the two of us. He didn't know I'd started wearing a wire, a tiny digital recorder I'd bought with cash. Legal in Illinois for recording conversations I was part of. "Clara," he began, not bothering with pleasantries, "I've been reviewing your recent performance." "Oh." "You seem distracted, unfocused, spending time on matters outside your purview." He leaned back, studying me. "It concerns me. My job is to ensure compliance across all departments. That requires a broad view. Your job is what I say it is." The mask slipped for just a moment, revealing the ugliness underneath. "And I say your job is to stamp the papers put in front of you and stop asking questions." "That's not compliance. That's criminality." He laughed, actually laughed. "Criminality. That's a strong word. You know what I call it: innovation. Every company does this. Clara, the only difference is we're better at it. Every company doesn't funnel millions through shell companies owned by family members." The silence stretched between us. I'd shown my cards, and we both knew it. "Prove it," he said finally. "Oh, wait. You can't, because Meridian Consulting provides valuable services that have helped us exceed projections by 40%. The board is thrilled. The investors are thrilled. The only person not thrilled is you. The SEC won't be thrilled either." "The SEC." He stood, walking to the window. "You think you're the first compliance officer to threaten me with the SEC? Let me explain how this works. You file a complaint. I produce documentation showing all proper procedures were followed. Your accusation gets dismissed as the paranoid delusions of a woman who couldn't adapt to change. Meanwhile, you get blacklisted from every financial firm in Chicago, maybe the country." "You seem very confident about that." "I am, because I've done this before." He turned back to me. 3 times, actually. And every whistleblower ended up either taking a generous severance with an NDA or finding themselves unemployable. Your choice. I stood to leave, then paused at the door. "You forgot a third option." "What's that?" "That I'm not like the others." Back in my office, I transcribed the entire conversation, adding it to my file. He'd admitted to serial fraud, to destroying whistleblowers, to knowing exactly what he was doing. It was exactly what I needed. I began preparing my internal report to the board, knowing it would likely be my last act as an employee. 50 pages of documented fraud, supported by evidence that would be impossible to ignore. But I also knew Evan was right about one thing: internal channels might not be enough. That evening, I met Megan one last time. "I'm filing the report Monday," I told her. "When I do, things will move fast. You need to be ready." Ready for what? To be questioned, to be pressured, maybe to be fired. I handed her a USB drive. "This is everything. If something happens to my files, if they try to bury this, you have a complete copy." "Clara, you're scaring me." "Good. Being scared means you'll be careful." I squeezed her shoulder. "We're doing the right thing. Whatever happens, remember that." Walking home that night, I felt the weight of what was coming. Evan had declared war, thinking he held all the advantages, but he'd made one crucial error. He'd given me time to prepare. I sat at my kitchen table, looking at the phone in my hand. One call to Lauren, and this would become bigger than Lexford, bigger than Evan, bigger than any of us. But once I made that call, there would be no going back. I thought about Megan's tears, about Marcus's nervousness, about the pension funds being deceived, about every employee who played by the rules while Evan rigged the game. Monday, I would submit my report. Tuesday, they would try to bury it. And Wednesday, the Wall Street Journal would have the story of the year. Evan Price thought he was untouchable. He was about to learn what happened when someone decided to touch back. The call with Lauren happened Sunday night, after I'd spent the weekend organizing every piece of evidence into a narrative even a child could follow. I used the burner phone, sitting in my car in a random parking garage. Paranoid, but practical. "Claire," she answered immediately. "I've been waiting for this call." "How did you know?" "Because I've been tracking Evan Price for 2 years. Every company he touches becomes a story eventually. I just didn't know Lexford was next until you started asking questions." My hands tightened on the phone. "You've been investigating him. Him and about 6 others like him. There's a whole network. Claire, they call themselves the architects. They move from company to company, inflate the numbers, extract the wealth, and disappear before the collapse. We've been trying to catch one in the act." "Well, you're about to—" "Tell me everything." I didn't, not over the phone. Instead, we established a protocol. I would upload files to a secure server she provided, accessible only through encrypted channels, no emails, no direct contact that could be traced. If anyone was monitoring my communications, they'd find nothing. "Claire, once you file that internal report tomorrow, he'll come for you hard. Are you ready for that?" "I have to be." "No, you don't. You could walk away, take the severance, sign the NDA, let someone else fight this battle." I thought about Megan, Marcus, all the employees who didn't have the luxury of walking away. That's not who I am. "I know. That's why I'm going to give you something. Check the server in an hour." When I logged in later, I found a file that made my jaw drop. Lauren hadn't just been investigating Evan, she had communications between him and other members of the architects, encrypted messages they thought were secure, discussing strategies, sharing victim companies, coordinating their moves like a choreographed heist. One message stood out, dated 3 weeks ago. "Lexford's compliance is becoming an issue. Handle it like you did at Brennan Industries." I looked up Brennan Industries. Their chief compliance officer had been fired for erratic behavior after reporting fraud. She'd been discredited so thoroughly that no one believed her warnings. The company collapsed 8 months later. That was meant to be my fate. Monday morning arrived gray and drizzling. Pathetic fallacy at its finest. I arrived at the office at 6:30, wanting to file my report before Evan could interfere. The building was nearly empty, just security and a few early traders. I logged into the system and uploaded my 50-page report to the board's secure portal. Copying the SEC's whistleblower department, the subject line was simple: "Evidence of systematic fraud requiring immediate action." Then I waited. The response came faster than expected. 8:15 a.m., a message from the board chairman. "Emergency meeting, boardroom, 9 a.m., your attendance required." I spent the intervening time backing up everything one more time, sending copies to my personal attorney, and placing a single document on my desk, my employment contract. highlighting the whistleblower protection clause. The boardroom was full when I arrived, not just the board, but Evan, the CFO, head of legal, and two people I didn't recognize, external counsel, I guessed. Ms. Hayes? The chairman began, his tone carefully neutral. Your report makes serious allegations. They're not allegations, they're documented facts. Evan laughed. Documentation can be interpreted many ways. What Clara calls fraud, I call aggressive growth strategies. Paying $18 million to a shell company owned by your brother is a growth strategy. The room shifted. Several board members exchanged glances. Meridian Consulting provides valuable services, Evan said smoothly. The ownership structure is irrelevant if the services are legitimate. Then show us the deliverables. Show us one report, one presentation, one tangible thing Meridian has produced. Not all value is tangible. Stop. The chairman raised his hand. Mr. Price, do you have documentation of Meridian's services or not? I can provide documentation by end of day. Of course he could. He'd spend the day fabricating it. But I was ready for that too. While Mr. Price is gathering that documentation, perhaps the board should review the pattern of trades executed using insider information, also detailed in my report. The CFO went pale. What trades? I pulled up the data on the boardroom screen. 23 trades, all authorized from Mr. Price's office, all executed after midnight, all using information that wasn't public at the time. This is ridiculous, Evan stood. She's trying to destroy me because I threatened her outdated way of doing business. Actually, I said, pulling out my recorder, you threatened me. Would the board like to hear the recording of Friday's conversation where Mr. Price admitted to destroying 3 previous whistleblowers? The room exploded, board members talking over each other, the lawyers frantically taking notes, Evan's face cycling through shades of red I didn't know existed. That recording is illegal, he shouted.